Good morning, everyone. So, in the last lecture, we were discussing the storage device hierarchy, where we have discussed that registers are the very fast memory. Then the second fastest memory is cache memory. Then we have talked about this main memory that you called RAM. These three are the volatile memory, and these are the non-volatile memories: hard drive, optical disk, and magnetic tapes. So here we can see the lot of space is there for storing purposes, but in volatile storage there is no lot of space. You cannot store a lot of data here. But whenever you are talking about any process, they want to have some data, they will take their data from registers, cache, or the main memory only. They cannot directly access hard disk, optical disk, or your magnetic tapes. Now, moving forward, now operating system operations. Operating system operations, again the same thing. We are going into deep what and how operating system is managing and the different services of the operating system of the system. You can say first one is bootstrap program. A simple code to initialize the system, load the kernel. Okay, whenever you are restarting your system, you are starting your system, a bootloader program is there. Bootloader is in ROM part. Whenever you are formatting your system, it will not be deleted. It's a ROM, read only memory. So your bootloader is there. That bootloader picks the bootstrap program that is kept in the operating system files in your C drive. Wherever you installed your operating system, there is a bootstrap program inside that operating system. So your bootloader will start this bootstrap program. It's a simple code to initialize the system, load the kernel. It will be started and then it will start the other functions of the kernel. Kernel processes are kept where where you have installed the operating system, there only. Then it loads the kernel. Now kernel is loading. Kernel is nothing but the important services of the operating system which are always running. Start system daemons, services provided outside of the kernel. So some services are there that are not the part of the kernel but part of the operating system. Operating system will load those particular services. Kernel interrupt driven hardware and software. Obviously, we have already seen that kernel is interrupt driven hardware and software. Some interrupts are of through hardware, some interrupts are from software. Wherever you are running a code and some device where zero problem is there or any other problem is there, so you will say that it's an interrupt of software. Some you're supplying some power through cable, but that cable is not working now, so it will be called a hardware driven interrupt. Now hardware interrupt one by one, hardware interrupt by one of the devices, software interrupt, maybe these three types. These may be exception or these may be a trap also. Hardware we are not going to discuss because it's a failure of any device, it's a disconnection of the wires, it may be anything. You are printing something from your printer and someone just unplugged the printer from the power source or disconnected the printer that uh, will disconnect the printer with your personal device, your PC. So we will not discuss this hardware interrupt. Hardware interrupt may be caused by anyone. We cannot uh, predict the output of the hardware interrupts. Now, software interrupts, these may be software errors, example division by zero, request of operating system services, system call. That means whenever you are running a code, your code include a call like the system call. In your code, you have written that you want to copy the contents of one file to another file. So again, for copying or renaming any file, you will require a system call. Why system call? Because you are going to use the system operating system services. That's why. So again, it will be exception. Other process problems include infinite loop, processes modifying each other or the operating system. There are so many cases. So whenever we are talking about interrupts, it should not be like you are assuming that interrupts are bad. Interrupts are good here. Whenever you want some services from the operating system, you will interrupt the operating system. Always. This is a good thing. You are running a particular code and you want another code to be run now. So you have to stop the existing process. Then only you can run your new process at that time. So for this, you have to insert an interrupt into the operating system. You will interrupt the current process. Otherwise, if interrupt facility is not there, you cannot run a new process while another process is already running on the CPU. Next is multi-programming, or we may call it a batch system. Single user cannot always keep CPU and idle IO busy. You are having a single processor and some IO device. This is a IO device. This is a processor. So if only one process is there, you cannot say that this process is going to give the task to this processor every time, and this process will be using this IO for all the times. It is not possible for a single processor system, single processes, and a single process system. Now, if you are having some other process also, some more processes are there. So at time t process P1 is using the processor, at time T2 process P2 is using the processor. Again, your processor will be busy at other times. We want our processor as busy as possible, because if processor is free, you are doing something and your processor is free and some processors are already waiting, so it will not be efficient. Multi-programming organizes jobs, ports, and data, so CPU always has one to execute. Multi-programming means you are having multiple processes at the same time. Single processor system is there. This is fixed. But now you are having n number of processes. That means multi-programming. So you have to manage the code and data. You have to organize or schedule these different processes and uh, giving these processes to one after another to the processor. A subset of total jobs in the system is kept in memory. We are having so many jobs, so one by one we are keeping it in the memory. Then from the memory we can schedule one of these processes to the processor, to the CPU itself. Whenever we are talking about processor or the CPU, both are same. A subset of sorry, one job selected and run via job scheduling. One job selected and run via job scheduling. Now, job scheduling is a concept we will discuss this job scheduling in detail in the second unit. That will be a very important unit. Job scheduling means you are having so many jobs, jobs, or you can say the processes. Both are same. You are having so many jobs. You have a single processor, or you can say CPU. You have to organize these processes on the CPU. That starting 10 milliseconds, this process is going to run. And the next 15 seconds, this process is going to run. Next 30 seconds, this process is going to run. Then again, this process will be running. Again, this process will be running. So you have to make a schedule from these processes, how you are going to allocate the CPU to each of them. That will be called job scheduling. Scheduling means you are going to schedule every task according to the time slots. Job means process. When job has to wait for IO, for example, OS switches to another job. If you are running this job and you are thinking that it will take around 100 milliseconds on CPU, okay, fine. You are giving this task to the CPU for 100 milliseconds, but after 50 milliseconds, it is calling for IO. Calling for IO means it requires some input output device. At that time, it has to wait. Now it has to wait, but CPU will not wait. CPU will take another process in the queue and it will run its process. It will simply discard this process out. So we switches to the another job. It's a very important topic, that is job sharing. Now multitasking or time sharing. Multitasking means we are having multiple tasks at a time. We are having a single system, like in the previous slide we have discussed. So whenever you are using multitasking or multi-programming, both are same. Multitasking means you are running more than one process at a time. A logical extension of batch system, the CPU switches jobs so frequently that users can interact with each job while it is running, creating interactive computing. So there are three different processes you are running. First, you are copying contents to your secondary storage. Second, you are listening song. Third, you are using your web browser and opening some site. Okay, these three tasks you are running simultaneously, but you don't know your system is sharing these three different tasks on time basis. Few milliseconds your song will play, then after few milliseconds your browser will work, after few milliseconds uh, some other work will be there. So your processor is sharing its time among different processes, but you will see that you will get to know that all are working perfectly. This is the feature of this multitasking. The CPU switches jobs so frequently It may be in milliseconds that users can interact with each job while it is running. If it's not so, then you can say if your processor is not fast, then in that case you will see a fluctuation between the different tasks. You are watching a movie and your movie will be stucking after milliseconds. It is not so frequent. You are listening a song and your song will be fluctuating. Voice is coming, it will be stopped. Again, voice is coming, it will be stopped. If your processor is not that much capable, then only it will be there. So, response time should be less than 1 second. Response time means the time when you are starting a process and it will be completely loaded into the memory. You are double clicking a movie, that movie should be start. That movie should start within 1 second of time. That is too much, I know that. But here you are involving your secondary storage and your RAM. So your secondary storage, from your secondary storage, you are copying the content of that movie into the memory. That's why 1 second is given to that particular job. Each user has at least one program executing in the memory, which is called process. So wherever you are talking about these particular things, multitasking, we will discuss that at all the time there will be at least one process to the CPU. If several jobs ready to run at the same time, CPU scheduling will be there. CPU scheduling or job scheduling both are same. CPU scheduling, process scheduling, job scheduling, all these terms will be used simultaneously. Both are same CPU job, or you may also call it process scheduling. So whenever you are having more than two jobs at a time, so you will have to maintain a scheduling there with the help of different schedulers and scheduling mechanisms. If processes don't fit in the memory, swapping moves them in and out to run. So suppose uh, you want to keep three or four different processes in the memory at the same time so that you can switch the processes among the CPU. So, but you are not having that much RAM that you can accommodate four or five different processes at the same time. Here I am talking about the 90s where we have we generally had our RAM in KBs, 256 KB or zero point 0.5 MBs, like this only RAM was there. So at that time, managing 3-4 tasks was very difficult at the same time. So there we use swapping. Swapping means you are keeping those content in the memory, whatever it is important for the process, and keeping out from the memory whatever is not required at that time. Swapping in and swapping out. Swapping in means here it's the RAM, it's the secondary storage, secondary storage, it's RAM. You are loading some contents from the secondary storage to RAM. It is called swapped in. Swap in. Swap in. When some contents are not used in the RAM, you are removing them and putting them in the secondary storage. It will be called swap out. So there will be two different processes, swap in and swap out. Okay. Virtual memory allows execution of processes not completely in memory. So, virtual memory is again a very important task, important concept, which we will discuss in the fourth unit. Memory management techniques. Now, for now, I will let you know that what virtual memory is. Uh, you should have the idea that whatever you are going to perform, whatever you are going to run, all these tasks should be in the main memory or the RAM. This is your RAM. This is your secondary storage. Now, you cannot run any particular code, you cannot play any movie directly from the secondary storage. If you want to run a movie, if you want to run a program, then this particular content should be carried, copied in the RAM. Then only you can run all these tasks from the RAM. Okay. First, you have to copy all the contents in the RAM. Then only you will use these particular things. Now, what if your movie size is 10 GBs? It's a very good print, 10 GB. Now, your RAM size is only 4 GBs. How will you load this movie here? You will say that we cannot manage this kind of file, so it will not be played because you cannot copy this content here. Again, some games are there having sizes of 30 GB or 40 GBs. How will you play that game in 4 GBs of RAM? It's a concept of virtual memory. Now, with the concept of virtual memory, CPU will assume that all this content can be copied in the RAM. We are having that much large RAM, but actually we are not having that much large RAM. Now, what will happen from this 10 GB movie? You will copy a starting 1 GB movie part here, starting 1 GB only. Now you will start playing this video. While moving forward, you are watching the movie, your back portion of the movie will be copied back to the secondary, or you can say the discarded. It will be deleted from the memory RAM. Now your next content, which is going to be played in the next 30 minutes or next 20 minutes, it will be again copied from here, and it will be copied from the secondary to RAM again and again. So you will watch your complete movie like this only. But again, if your movie is playing like this is your cursor. You can play any movie from anywhere. Now, if your movie is playing here, you are directly seeking this movie in middle or in the end. You will have to wait for some milliseconds or even a second. Why? Because these contents are not copied in the RAM. Only this particular content from here to here is copied in the RAM. Now you are seeking here directly. So your operating system will have to copy the contents from the secondary storage, and again you will be having some delay watching movie. I hope you all have seen such kind of scenario where whenever you are moving your movie like this forward, it is okay. Whenever you are directly seeking to the end of the movie, again you will have to wait for few milliseconds or even second. So it's a concept of virtual memory. Whenever you are playing a game, you are playing a video game that having size of 30 GBs or 40 GBs. In that case, only the level you are going to play is to be copied in the memory. All other levels, all other higher levels or the lower levels will not be copied at that time. Whenever you are directly going to any previous level, what you have already played, then again it will take few seconds or few milliseconds to load that particular file in the RAM. Okay, everyone, today I am having some work, so I will stop here. We will discuss other things in the next class. Hmm.
దాంట్లో పెట్టమనుకో నువ్వు ఆలోచిస్తే ఇది చాలా చిన్న విషయం